Hello, I'm back again. Yes, we're making progress. I'm making more than one video in a week. Who even am I right now? So, thank you for joining. My name's Christina, and we're here to talk about all things brain retraining and nervous system rewiring. But today's video, I do want to talk kind of a little bit about who I am, where I came from, how I got to this point. I'm typically a pretty private person, but I feel like I'm going to really try to open up more about me and my story in hopes that it can help heal and give hope to somebody else. Also, I just kind of want to touch a little bit too, sort of on what brain and nervous system rewiring is if you're new to that, or if you just want a little bit more information, or you're just kind of in that stage where you're exploring all of that right now. It was really helpful for me to listen to different videos and like healing stories and things like that, because I just found a lot of hope and encouragement in it. So I really hope to be that for somebody else too. So, again, I'm Christina. I'm currently residing in Southern California. I work in the fashion industry, so yeah, if you can't tell, I usually am going to be wearing some kind of funky things or just a little dressed up on this channel, even though it's not a fashion channel. That's just what I do for a living, and it's who I am, so this is just, I'm just going to be myself. And I own an e-commerce boutique called Christina's Closet. I used to have a brick and mortar store in Laguna Beach in 2018 and 2019 for a couple of years, and then I decided to move everything online because I was seeing the most growth there, and there was really no point in me paying rent anymore in a very expensive town. So it was a good decision. I decided to just fully go online and have more flexibility, like with my life and schedule and everything. And so that's where I am right now. And so, yeah, I'll link the website below if you're interested in checking out. It's Christina's Closet, both with a K. So prior to that, I had moved down with my husband to Southern California about over 6 years ago. I took a promotion. I was working a corporate job and took a promotion to be a sales rep, and the territory was down here, so that's what brought me here. And then I decided to make a complete career change after my passion in the fashion industry, and I think that was kind of where all the nervous system stuff probably really took a turn for the worst. But honestly speaking, I just have that personality, and I think probably a lot of you do, and you've probably heard this a lot if you listen to other videos, that those with sort of like a type A, highly driven, overachiever sort of personality is just more susceptible to getting chronic illness, especially things like chronic fatigue, because your body just shuts down, like when it can't take anymore, and you're really not living your life in a healthy way because your focus is not necessarily on taking care of yourself, but your achievements or whatever, and then you can throw in like trauma into that mix if you've had any trauma. I mean, I think we've all been through crappy life situations. I myself wouldn't say that I have the typical trauma. I had actually on paper what was a really blessed and good childhood from a two-parent household. But looking back now, I did have one parent that definitely has a dysregulated nervous system, one that I don't think really has that tendency. He's probably a little more chill, but there was probably some roles from both parents, just not intentionally. This isn't like a blame the parents video either. It's just to give an understanding of kind of like where it might have stemmed from, because that's just where you learn your behavior. And so looking back, I really do think that growing up in a household where it wasn't chaos, but I just a lot of times felt like I couldn't be myself. For one, had to be like the good girl, perfect child, do what they wanted me to do, and then just having like a very like critical mother, I guess, kind of sort of all played a role in that. And then I also just grew up extremely religious, like borderline cultish, not in a cult at all, but just to people that are like very fundamentalist about their religious beliefs, and it just never resonated with me at all. And while I consider myself to be very spiritual and in touch, I just have my own way of doing things, and I don't believe in going to church and like, hard to find religions and rules and regulations and all that. It's just not my personality. No offense to anybody that is, but I just felt like I could never question any of that growing up, and that I really do feel like those were sort of the beginnings of me becoming sort of a people pleaser personality too, and just feeling like I had to be on all the time. And so, when I think you can understand these things, you can start to change them, because you can see that it wasn't necessarily healthy or good, especially not from a nervous system standpoint. So yeah, that's a little bit about how I grew up. But then when I started to work a very stressful corporate job, again, I was like kind of the people pleaser, just constantly wanting to get promoted, get pay raises, just be the best, always on, like never felt like I couldn't not check my email, even though I was, only technically working like a 9-to-5 job. I was just working over the hours I should have been. I was traveling like for sales, driving all over the place, and then throw kind of a shitty boss into that mix, and dealing with like some sexual harassment stuff from that boss. It just sort of was the perfect storm to create a more like stressful environment, I guess, especially when I just moved to like a new city, a completely different place than what I was used to, because I grew up in Central California. So Southern California was like much bigger, way more people, just a different lifestyle. And I liked it, and I still like it. It's just, it was a lot of change all at once. And then like that stress of everything was just a lot. And then I wanted to stress myself out more. So I decided to become an entrepreneur and quit that job and start my own company and sell clothing and just do what I really loved, because I had always been into fashion, and I just didn't want to be a corporate slave anymore. It just didn't resonate with me at all. Even aside from the boss drama, like I just didn't love doing it. It just wasn't for me. So that, I think, and then starting a job, or starting a company, then closing a store after I'd spent a lot of time and money opening that store, moving it online, like all these factors were very stressful. Even though some stress is not always bad, it was just, I just was really hard on myself, I think, a lot, because I felt like it was all on me now. It wasn't even just like I was working for someone else, but like you're working for yourself. And so if I couldn't make this business thrive, like I was going to be some sort of failure. So, there's that. And then like just your little life stress issues here and there that came with just, being a married woman and an adult and all that. I think it was one thing after another like that, and I just didn't feel like I really had any kind of breather in between there. And then 2020 hit. And so I think everybody felt that, right? So that was like, again, a different kind of stress, but it was like a collective, like you just felt constantly on edge. There's a lot of uncertainty. I'm not someone that watches the news. I think the media is bullshit, but I could see what was happening, with the fear porn and like all this going on. And like, that was just, another thing to add. And I started to have what I guess would be deemed as a spiritual awakening. And I've heard this a lot, that a lot of times physical illness can coincide with the spiritual awakening, and you sort of go through this dark night of the soul. And I think that was very much what was happening. So on top of all that other things is just the business, like trying to deal with like finances for the business, my husband's work stress, just our life together, like everything was just kind of like piling up. And I don't feel like I was doing what I needed to do to be me, and like be in a state where I could just let it all go when I needed to. It was just like I was constantly in my head thinking about things, and just really being too hard on myself and maybe hard on others, and just not really knowing how to relax. And I don't think I've ever been very good at getting into a state where what you'd call rest and digest. I just don't think I was ever very good at getting into that. Just all throughout my life, whether it was the way I was raised or not, or I just have a tendency towards this, probably a little of both. But I've just never been able to like relax. It's hard for me. I just like go, go, go. Like even if I'm like sitting watching a movie or something, I'm constantly doing something else, whether I'm like on my computer, coming up with like posts for my social media, flipping through a magazine, like, you know what I mean? Like I'm constantly was like multitasking, and I just had a really hard time just sitting and just being. And so I think if that is your personality and this sounds a lot like you for sure. And, it manifested in like a physical way for sure. It's a nervous system dysregulation. But it's not, it's not scary, because that's good news, because it's something that you can fix. And same thing with brain retraining. Like our brains, we didn't know a lot about it before, but now I feel like a lot of information has come out about neuroplasticity and how we really can change our brains, and that there is ways to fix this. It's not necessarily like an overnight fix for a lot of people, but it's a process. And if you're consistent every day, you can get back to health and to feeling good and learning how to just be in the moment, not stress about the future, just not stress about things going on in your life, and really learning how to just enjoy yourself and just become the person you were meant to be. So I feel like that was everything leading up to the finale, which was the apartment we were living in for 6 years after we moved down here was completely infested with mold, like horrible, black, make you sick mold. And we didn't realize it at the time. I don't think looking back you ever think you're going to be that person that gets sick, even though we had seen some things in the apartment the entire time, and we did have issues with like mold in our bathroom and growing on the ceiling and stuff. We never really thought anything of it because we pretty much felt fine. Like my allergies would get worse and like sinus issues and stuff, but I would never really like feel horrible. I still was functioning and fine, and I could eat whatever I wanted, and it wasn't a big deal. But it wasn't until I started working from home. So when I closed the business in February of 2020, March 2020 is when the world shut down and everyone was working from home anyway. And I was one of those people, just by chance, just from the decision that I made to make in my business. So working from home for 2 years in that apartment, 2021 hit. And the first signs of the mold issues, I think for me was, and this is kind of unusual, but I've heard of it before, so it's not completely unheard of, but that I would just look bloated. I didn't really feel bloated. I mean, I could eat foods pretty normally. Like I couldn't like pinpoint one thing that it was, but like my lower stomach would just always look bloated. And I just kind of chalked up to, okay, like maybe it's my age, maybe it's hormones. I wasn't really sure, but I just tried different diets and different things, and nothing really seemed to make it go away. And so I just thought, okay, maybe I'm like gaining weight. I mean, I tried working out more, all these things, but it never like completely went away. And I was always someone that had a really like active lifestyle. I liked to work out every day. I ate pretty healthy. I had a pescatarian diet where I just mainly ate seafood and veggies and fruits, and I didn't eat like a ton of processed food, but I did, have the occasional thing here and there, and I do like sweets, so I would have like a dessert here and there, and I wasn't like super strict. Like we would go out to dinner and I would just order what I wanted, but it just kind of started to change what seemed like overnight. But looking back now, it was definitely gradual. Like I could see pictures of myself from then, and it was like, it looked like I slowly was gaining weight in those years. And again, it was just strange because I hadn't changed anything about my lifestyle, so I didn't know why. And then in January of 2021, I got food poisoning. And that was just when all hell broke loose. So again, in the chronic illness world, you'll usually hear that there was like multiple factors, but then there was like that straw that broke the camel's back. And for me, that's what it was. So it was like the mold had gotten into my GI tract from breathing it for so many years. And yeah, boom, food poisoning. And that was the final like toxin trigger. My body just couldn't take it anymore. And then I started to develop these chronic GI symptoms that I could not get rid of for over a year and a half up until this point. So, yeah, long story short, it just took, like most people, tons of doctors. No one could tell me why, until I finally discovered that there was mold growing through the walls in our apartment, and we left. And then I found a doctor that would test me, that knew a lot about mold illness, and lo and behold, I did have black mold in my body that came up on my tests, both from a urine test and from a nasal sample. So yes, definitely there's a fungal infection in my body. And by that time I had started, when we moved out, this was November of 2021, I had started the DNRS program. So I had heard about brain retraining when I first got sick and we were living in the apartment. I didn't know what was wrong with me, but this is common too. I just wasn't ready to hear it. It sounded scary. It was almost like someone telling me that I had brain damage, and I was just like, what? Like, how am I supposed to fix this? You know, it's my brain. It's like nothing you can necessarily just take a pill for, or, you know, none of the doctors like really knew anything about it or to tell me anything about it, even though I had worked with a naturopath, an acupuncturist, and several other types of doctors. Like, not one of them mentioned it to me. The current doctor I work with did know about it. It was part of the protocol he prescribed, because he did know that I was doing DNRS and told me, yeah, that's great, keep doing it. And he did tell me to do the vagus nerve exercises and stuff. So this was all part of his protocol. So there are doctors out there that know it. So I just don't want to, like, you know, lump them all into one category that none of them know. But it was kind of something I had to figure out on my own first, because it took me a while to get in to see this doctor. So I'm glad I stumbled across it, and it was something I started even before I started anything else he prescribed, because I think it did get me on the right path in the beginning. But with DNRS, I just didn't feel like, you know, it was doing what it needed to do to completely heal me. My last lingering symptoms were still GI issues. Everything else had gone away. I just, like, physically, mentally felt a lot better, especially these last few months, like going into summer. But I still was having problems with certain foods, like grains and carbs and stuff. And I just was bloating, like, from them. Like, when I would try to add certain things back into my diet or eat more fiber or something like that, like, just the bloat would come back, and it was just like constant. It's just the most uncomfortable thing in the world. It's hard to explain. It's not like a normal, oh, I'm full, I ate too much bloating. It's just like this constant, like someone blew up a balloon in your stomach, or like there's a brick sitting in your stomach or something. It's just, and again, like, this is where the nervous system comes into play. From what I know now, and now that I've been able to tone down these symptoms, and it's getting a lot better, and I'm having days, and even like this last week, where I really haven't had any bloating at all. I know that it was because my body was trying to protect me. It was still stuck thinking, like, it's like it got stuck in that night from food poisoning, because that's really when all hell broke loose and I couldn't recover from that. So it's like, from that food poisoning incident, my body just went into overdrive, and my immune system went into overdrive, and it was just trying to keep me safe, thinking that everything that I put in my mouth was a threat and was poison. And yeah, and you know, multiple factors, from being in the mold, like, I was under chronic stress, not handling my stress well. And so all these things played a part, in that. And so I really think that, you know, I'm not going to just blame one thing, like the moldy apartment or the stress, but definitely they all had something to do with it. And if it wasn't for working on rewiring my nervous system and my limbic system, I don't think that I would have made as much progress as I have now. I really do think it's the missing link in most illnesses. So that's pretty much how we got here. But I do want to give you hope that it's not something that you can't change, or that you have to live with forever, even if a doctor told you that. I mean, I had a doctor try to tell me that I had IBS, even though I don't have some of the classic symptoms that you would need to qualify as criteria for IBS. So I don't, it's just like when they don't know what to tell you, they just slap you with an autoimmune disorder because that's their way of saying we can't figure it out. But thankfully, we are our own best doctors and we can figure it out. I just feel like when I stopped constantly looking for something outside me to fix me, and I was like, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to fix myself. Up until this point, I think one of the things that got me through is like, you know what, you've always done things your own way. Like I'm kind of a rebel and you've always managed to get where you wanted to be. If I wanted a certain job or to live in a certain place or a certain car, like whatever, like I was able to manifest what I wanted and how I wanted my life to look up until this point. So why would this be any different? Why can't I just manifest my health back? I was always a healthy person. I just don't believe that this one event would just completely ruin the rest of my life. I think there is just an experience in time. And so that's the best way to look at it, is that, it's just something that happened and I can get past it. I'm going to look back and just say that was just a horrible time in my life, but I know what I learned from it. And now I'm going to go on and hopefully be able to help other people heal from it. So brain and nervous system rewiring, what is it? So brain rewiring is pretty much doing daily practices. It depends on the program that you're using. They're all going to be a slightly different, but from the few that I've researched, and I've done DNRS and I'm now in the Primal Trust program, it is pretty much the same concept. You're just sort of doing like daily exercises for your limbic system. So some, like DNRS calls it rounds, Primal Trust calls it ABCs. So these are just things that you spend usually an hour a day. Once you start to feel better, you can probably back off from doing those and just focus more on like the somatic practices or body movement or mood elevation, whatever things are helping and resonating with you in your journey. But for me, I'm still doing the ABCs with Primal Trust. So yeah, I don't want to, it's proprietary information, so I can't really go into exactly what it is in this video, but I can just kind of give you a general guide, and you're just pretty much telling your brain to stop. You catch yourself in loops when you're having a thought throughout the day. So mine was mostly around food. So if I started to think if someone invited me out to a restaurant and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna be able to eat there? And I start ruminating on this and I go online and look up the menu, because I never used to do these things before, and start to see what I can order, how I'm gonna order it, what the ingredients are, that kind of thing. That's when you just sort of catch yourself in that and tell your brain to stop. And then there's a few more steps you do to kind of redirect your thoughts somewhere else. So this is not positive thinking, because I know that's probably a common misconception, is just oh, you think positive. No, that's not what it is. That's not gonna work. There's definitely a benefit in keeping a positive attitude, especially in knowing that you can and will heal. And having that belief that you can heal, that 100% I would agree with. But the actual practice itself, it's like working out, right? If you want abs, if you want to have defined muscles, then you're going to have to consistently work out every day. Well, this is like a workout for your brain. So you're going to have to do these every day and just be consistent with it. And that's what the most important thing is. Even if you can't do the full hour, you can start off slow, just do it a few minutes of it and then work your way up. I would just say, just don't let that intimidate you, the time, but also be willing to put in the time, because it's your health and nothing is more important than that. So if you really do want to take this to the next level and be serious about it to heal your body and just live an overall better life, then 100% you have to commit to it. And then nervous system rewiring. So it's sort of the same thing. It's like exercise, but for your nervous system. But instead of using the mental and doing exercises with because with brain training, you'll speak things out loud, or you can just do them and say them in your head, especially if you're out somewhere and you can't just start speaking out loud. Well, the nervous system is a little bit different, where it's using more of somatic practices. And this is why I really like Dr. Kat's program, because She's using body movements and things that are really like getting you into feeling your body and being aware of your body. Because I think that's where a lot of us get lost, is like we don't take time to like actually sit and feel our way through things. Like even when we eat, you know, like we'll just rush. Like I noticed that I eat really fast because I just do things, a lot of things really fast. Again, another sign of just having like a dysregulated nervous system. So when I started to like eat dinner, I would just like take a deep breath. I would like put my hand over my heart, take a deep breath, just be thankful for my meal. If you want to say like a little prayer, that sort of thing, by all means, like that's going to be helpful. And then just to like smell your food, enjoy eating it, take your time eating it. Just these little things like that can be really helpful. And then the somatic practices, there's a million things under the sun you can do. I mean, you can YouTube somatic practices for nervous system and a bunch of stuff will come up. So that's what I would suggest, is just researching what it is and then picking things that will really help you, what you think intuitively is going to help you. Because if it's something that like you don't like to do, like if you hate yoga or you hate like dance or whatever it is, like you're not going to do it, or and if you do, you're not going to enjoy it, and then it's not going to work. So you need to pick something that really resonates with you. Like I do really like to dance. I do the 5 Tibetan rites, which is like yoga pretty much. But, you know, and again, you can start off slow with these things and then work your way up. So if you're in bed or you just can't move, you have a lot of fatigue or something like that, or just physical impairments, then just start off slow. Just do whatever you can, even if it's just giving yourself a rub like this, because that's going to signal safety to your body, or a butterfly hug. And then breathe. And breath work is great too. And all of that is going to show your body and then signal to your brain that you're in a place of safety. So especially if you're somebody that you feel like trauma or like childhood experiences or just any traumatic experience throughout your life is something that's been a huge contributor to your physical ailments, then signaling safety to your body is going to be probably the most important thing. And again, someone who hasn't had trauma, but maybe I haven't felt like I've had a lot of like safety, or maybe because I wasn't living in a very safe place, I just felt like I wasn't safe or something. Like I don't really know how to explain it, like, but it just made a lot of sense when I started to do these things that, oh yeah, like maybe I wasn't really feeling my body or feeling into emotions or things that I was happening. And by doing this, it kind of causes things to come up sometimes. So that's why I always say, like, go slow. If you feel like you need like one-on-one help, like please by all means reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you and make suggestions. And you know, this is like very tailored to everyone's needs and like where you are in your journey. But I do feel like no matter what you're suffering from, this will help you. I'm just a firm believer in that. I mean, I'm like a junkie when it comes to listening to healing stories. That was one of the things that really got me through this. And I even visualized myself, like what I'm doing right now, on a video or just talking to somebody, telling them how I healed. So it's very real that, you know, what you believe and what you think and what you say out loud is going to manifest. And that's just a huge part of healing your body. And it's not just about getting symptoms to go away either. And I think that's another thing that I like about Dr. Kat's program is if you were just focusing on, I just want my symptoms to go away, yes, they may with doing the brain and nervous system retraining. But, you know, she says this too, is that if you don't like find a purpose and a bigger reason to live other than just getting symptoms to go away, then you're going to find something else to focus on, right? You're going to find drama at work or drama with your career or problems in a relationship or friendships or something. Like it'll switch from your body and focusing on problems with that to problems on something else. And we probably all know somebody like this where it's like every day it's a problem, right? Like they need something or someone to be irritated or just have drama with, just to make them feel alive. That's nervous system dysregulation at its finest. If you can't wake up in the morning and have a purpose to do something meaningful with your day or feel good just for the sake of feeling good, and you have anxiety, you're looking for something to worry about, you turn on the news and you're listening to negative bullshit, these are the kinds of things that is going to keep you stuck and not feeling well, not just mentally, but physically too. And if you don't have physical ailments, well, you're well on your way if this is the way that you're living your life. And I think one of the reasons I was able to heal very quickly, because not everyone is, especially when they've been living in mold, or just had very traumatic events coupled with toxins or Lyme disease or whatever it is that they've been diagnosed with. I really feel like me already not being caught up in the drama of the world, just kind of knowing that I'm responsible and I create my own reality and I'm not going to let the media or the government or anybody dictate what I do with my life, that in itself can be really helpful, because if you're giving your power away and your control away to people you don't even know or care about, that don't care about you, then it's going to be really hard to create a meaningful existence and truly live, the way you're supposed to be living, because you're just going to constantly be doing things for other people or operating out of fear. And fear is down here, right? Fear is like the lowest of the low vibrations that you can be in. And so what happens when you're raising your vibration and you're getting out of the fear of your symptoms and the fear of waking up with symptoms and feeling bad and just focusing on other things and just feeling better, like even if it's just mentally in your head, it's just going to keep raising and raising and raising. And then you'll start to notice symptoms melt away. It won't necessarily happen overnight. It could. It does for some people. I'm not saying that's not possible. I don't want to put that thought in anybody's head. There are people who spontaneously heal. But if you don't be discouraged, right? Because it doesn't mean that it's not working, and it doesn't mean you're not doing the right program. You don't need to jump from program to program to program. I didn't want to do that. Like I gave DNRs a real chance, but I knew just intuitively that when I was listening to my own gut that something was missing, and it was definitely the somatic practices and the real work on my nervous system to really like make my body feel safe, because I still couldn't go out to restaurants and just like eat whatever I wanted. And I'm still working on a few things. I'm not like 1,000% yet, but I mean, in the last couple weeks, I've gone to multiple restaurants, ordered things that I wanted to eat. I've been cooking much more regular meals because I love to cook. And that was one of the hardest things about this. And I'm sure it's been hard for my husband too, because like I've had to make a lot of meals separate for him. And sometimes like he just eats what I eat, which was kind of boring because it was just very plain. So I've really been able to get back into like cooking and baking things and enjoying like food again. And so that was one of the things that was so hard, because food is such a big part of life, right? It's like a social thing. It's like something we all do, is we love to just go out and enjoy a good meal with people, or just make dinner for someone or whatever, just have that occasional like sweet treat. And so not being able to do those things was, it sucked. Like it was a really shitty period in my life that I would never wish on anybody. But also being really good about my diet too, like not to the point where it's unhealthy and I'm focusing on just eating 5 foods or whatever, but it's eating as much as I can and keeping my diet as robust as I can while keeping it healthy. So there are still things that I will never eat. Like I'll never bring like processed food into our house, like boxed snacks and chips and stuff. Like those are just things like I might have on occasion, but I just don't go to the grocery store and like just fill up a cart with shit. I shop the perimeter of the grocery store. I buy things that are whole foods, Um, things that come from earth, if you can't plant it or kill it, I pretty much don't want it on my plate on a regular basis. So I still am going to make a conscious effort to keep my diet as clean as I can. And I've always been that way, or since I was in my 20s and I switched to, eating that way. So yeah, I mean, it's not, and I'm not doing it out of fear anymore. It's just my decision of how I want to eat, because that's just what my body likes and it's how I feel the best. So again, I think what this all comes back to is just use your intuition, and when you're really listening to yourself and you're not listening to the chatter outside and what doctors or gurus or anybody's trying to tell you, and you're really listening to your gut, then I think that's when the real change begins, and you can find a path that is going to lead you down to healing. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys being here. Maybe, what we can do like a live one day or something if we want to do like questions and answers. But if you have any questions, feel free to comment. I always leave my email in the box below in the description box. So just feel free to reach out to me, and I'll leave my Instagram too, and all my information's on there. So I really appreciate it. I hope you guys take care. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.